There is a cardinal that deserves a little bit more, how would you say it, profile during this conclave, and his name is Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith. He is a very, very interesting man, and somebody that I think deserves a little bit more understanding. He is a Sri Lankan prelate who served as Archbishop of Colombo since 2009. He was made a cardinal in 2010. Ranjit previously served as Auxiliary Bishop of Colombo, Bishop of Ratnapur, Adjunct Secretary of the Congregation of Evangelization of Peoples, Apostolic Nuncio to Indonesia and East Timor, Congregation and Secretary to the Congregation of Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments. So, a man that speaks English, Italian, several other languages. And so we just look at his life here. Pata Bendigi Don Alberto Malcolm Ranjit was born on the 15th of November 1947. That makes him, if I'm not mistaken, 77 at the moment. In Pole Hawala, in what was then British Ceylon, to Patan Bendiga Don William and Mary Wilfred Pereira. He had three younger sisters. Ranjit attributed his first interest to becoming a priest to the example set by a French missionary priest assigned to his parish. He studied in Rome, earning a degree in theology in the Pontifical Urban College and a licentiate in the Pontifical Biblical Institute in 1978, followed by a postdoctoral work in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. In June 1975, Ranjit was ordained to the priesthood by Pope Paul VI in St. Peter's Square. Later, he joined the tutorial staff of St. Thomas College, Kotte. Pope John Paul II appointed him Auxiliary Bishop of Colombo, Sri Lanka, and titular Bishop of Karasusi on the 17th of June 1991. He received his episcopal consecration on the 31st of August 1991 by Nicholas Fernando, Archbishop of Colombo. In 1994, Ranjit led a commission that denounced the theological work of Sri Lankan theologian Tisa Balasuriya. He charged that Balasuriya had questioned original sin and the divinity of Christ, as well as supported women's ordination. Ranjit was supported in his position by Cardinal Ratzinger. He was responsible for coordinating the visit of Pope John Paul to Sri Lanka in 1995. In November 1995, John Paul II named him first bishop of the newly created Diocese of Ratnapura, Sri Lanka. His diplomatic and curial posts. On October 2001, John Paul assigned him a post of adjunct secretary to the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. He was also named head of the Pontifical Mission Societies. He was appointed titular Archbishop of Umbriatico and Apostolic Nuncio to Indonesia and East Timor on the 29th of April 2004. His appointment was unusual in that, unlike almost all nuncios, he was not a graduate from the Pontifical Ecclesiastical Academy. Ranjit was the first Sri Lankan to be appointed an apostolic nuncio, which is important to understand. Ranjit was appointed secretary to the Congregation of Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments on 10th of December 2005. He developed a reputation as a liturgical conservative. He held to receiving in communion in the hand as illegitimate practice never envisioned by the Second Vatican Council. He criticized bishops who did not promptly make provision for the celebration of the Mass in Latin when Pope Benedict authorized in 2006, calling it a rebellion against the Pope. He once said, "I'm not a fan of the Lefebvrians, but what they sometimes say about the liturgy, they say for good reason." Ranjit is fluent in 10 languages: Italian, French, German, Hebrew, Greek, Spanish, Latin, English, Sinhala, and Tamil. That's impressive. That's like John Paul II level of languages. What could a pope do with those? Anyway, Archbishop of Colombo. In June 2009, Pope Benedict appointed him Metropolitan Archbishop of Colombo. Ranjith was among 26 Metropolitan Archbishops to receive the pallium from Pope Benedict on the feast of St. Peter's and Paul, 29th of June 2009. In October 2009, Ranjith issued liturgical guidelines in his diocese. They included a recommendation for all faithful, including religious, to receive communion reverently, kneeling and on the tongue, as well as laymen being forbidden from preaching. Oh, please, make him Pope. Cardinal. On the 20th of October 2010, Pope Benedict announced he would make Ranjith a cardinal at the consistory scheduled for the 20th of November 2010. He was given the rank of cardinal priest and assigned the titular church of St. Lorenzo in Lucena. Ranjith participated in the cardinal as a cardinal elector in 2013 conclave which elected Pope Francis. Ranjith is a member of the Congregation of Divine Worship and Discipline of the Sacraments and Congregation of the Evangelization of Peoples. He has been considered a papabile by observers, meaning he is thought to be a potential next pope. In July 2024, Ranjith voiced his opposition to the introduction of 2 bills aimed at supporting same-sex marriages in Sri Lanka. In October 2024, Ranjith banned his priests from allowing women to serve at the altar, stating that male altar servers are one of the main sources of vocations to the priesthood in Sri Lanka, and it will affect the number of candidates entering seminaries, the risk of which we cannot take. Talk about common sense. Common sense. Please give us a pope with common sense that brings back reverence to the sacred. So this is profile of Malcolm Ranjith. I could read you out the one on the Vatican website, but it's tiny. It really doesn't go through his legacy, and sometimes whoever maintained this Wikipedia entry, I suppose they kind of captured a lot of the elements here. But anyway, this is Cardinal Malcolm Ranjith, and if he steps out on the loggia next week, at least you know a little bit about this cardinal from the East. And who knows, we've had a Polish pope, we've had a German pope, we've had an Argentinian pope, maybe we'll have an Asian pope, and it mightn't be the pope we think, like Tagle. It could be Ranjith. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Dear Reverend Fathers, dear Reverend Sisters, and my dear friends. St. Thomas Aquinas, a great blessing for the Church by the Lord, because whatever happened in his life is all due to the actions of the Lord himself. Because everyone who is chosen from his or her mother's womb and is planned by the Lord to achieve great things in him, achieves all of that only due to his own actions, not because of the person's greatness or his background or his culture or any other factor. It is purely the Lord who works the miracle of holiness in the life of a person. We see this happening during the times of the Old Testament as well as in the time of the Church. We see this happening in the august person of Moses, who was the first and the greatest prophet that Israel ever had. We see this happening in the lives of Samuel, in the lives of King David and King Solomon, in the life of the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, right down to our own times. through the persons of Mary, Saint Joseph, the apostles, and all the martyrs and saints that adorned the history of the Church. Among these saints, we today celebrate the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, a great intellectual, gifted with tremendous capacity to discern the will of God for humanity. He wrote many books. He studied as a Dominican under the tutelage of St. Albert the Great, one of the great teachers of the Dominican order, who was later the Archbishop of Regensburg. He studied how to synthesize the philosophy of Aristotle with the teachings of the Lord Jesus Christ. His treatise, Summa Theologica, is a masterpiece of the synthesis between philosophical knowledge and theology. He learned how to explain the word of the Lord, word of God, in very concrete human terms in the day-to-day issues that come up in life. His methodology of posing a question, going through scriptures and the traditions of the fathers, and finally drawing conclusions or corollaries is superior to any other system of intellectual research that was found in the Church. Thus, St. Thomas Aquinas became the great teacher of the Church. He was not only just a teacher, but he was a great lover of Jesus Christ, especially the Eucharist. Some of the beautiful Eucharistic hymns that have been composed by him are being used even today. So, dear brothers and sisters, we have to praise and thank God for what He has achieved in the life of this simple man. Plato, in his philosophical presentations, showed us that there cannot be any link between the world of God and the world that is phenomenal in this real situation of our life. He said there is no possibility for the two to interact. But Jesus Christ came on earth to show that it is possible for God to intervene in the life of human beings. And therefore his incarnation became the highest manifestation of God becoming a human being. St. Thomas Aquinas, following the philosophy of Aristotle in a more pragmatic and practical way, showed us how divine science can be reconciled with human philosophy and human achievements. Therefore, it is a beautiful life of a person who loved God deeply and who developed systems to understand human knowledge and human wisdom. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, if we compare Pope Francis with Pope Benedict, we have here two persons who reflect in a very comprehensive manner the theology of Plato and Aristotle, the idea of God in Plato and in Aristotle. Pope Benedict reflects a situation where he says that it is the Lord who will have to save us. The Lord takes the initiative. And Pope Francis is a person who says, yes, the Lord takes the initiative, but you have to cooperate. You have to do your own part. And that is why he is seeking today to bring the Church closer and closer to the realisms of human life. And he wants us as Christians to follow the principle of do and let it be done. So, my dear brothers and sisters, he has called upon all educational institutions, including university colleges, including schools, and all Catholic educational institutions, to seek to serve society without any discrimination, without any difference, calling upon them to serve all humanity, to be open to all members of religions, different philosophies. His Holiness shows us the way to be more incarnated into human reality, Pope Francis. In fact, one of his documents fascinated me is Fratelli Tutti, all are brothers and sisters in this planet. The Holy Father says, some people attempt to flee from reality, taking refuge in their own little world. Others react to it with destructive violence. Yet between selfish indifference and violent protest, there is always another possible option open, that of dialogue. Dialogue between generations, dialogue among our people, for we are that people. Readiness to give and receive while remaining open to the truth. A country flourishes when constructive dialogue occurs between its many rich cultural components: popular culture, university culture, youth culture, artistic culture, technological culture, economic culture, and media culture. He says this in Fratelli Tutti number 199. Lack of dialogue means that in these individual sectors, people are not concerned for the common good, but for the benefits of power, or at least for ways to impose their own will on the others. Round tables taken thus become initiatives for negotiating sessions in which individuals attempt to seize even possible advantage rather than cooperating in the pursuit of common good. The heroes of the future will be those who break with this unhealthy mindset and determine respectfully to promote truthfulness aside from personal interest. The Holy Father is asking us to leave behind whatever is our own in order to reach out to the others. If that kind of break cannot happen, that kind of openness that will heal society will never happen. God willing, such heroes, those who work to break ties with their unhealthy mindset, are quickly emerging even now in the midst of our society. All this calls for the ability to recognize other people's right to be themselves and to be different. We cannot have a monolithic society anywhere because we have such a variety of differences. Differences not only at the religious level, differences at the level of philosophy, differences at the level of politics, differences at the level of equality, differences at the level of education. All these differences have to be given up in order to create a unified world. The Holy Father's intent in writing this apostolic exhortation is to encourage human beings to go for a united one world project. So the Holy Father says, all this calls for the ability to recognize other people's right to be themselves and to be different. This recognition, as it becomes a culture, makes possible the creation of a social covenant. Without it, subtle ways can be found to make others insignificant and irrelevant, if no value to society, while rejecting certain visible forms of violence. Another, more insidious kind of violence can take root: the violence of those who despise people who are different. You can see that happening in our own culture, in our own country. People are so nervous today if we talk about reconciliation, if we talk about accountability, if we talk about transparency, people are so nervous today that they think that they can protect themselves inside parapet walls. The Holy Father says that we must never encourage parapet walls between us. We must break down all parapet walls. The Catholic educational system, whether it is in the school or in the university college, should open its doors to all kinds of people and teach them how to seek unity among each other and not to find only the differences. If a human being cannot tolerate differences in other people, then he is no more a human being. If he thinks that he can hide inside a shell and protect himself from the others, cut off from them totally, he loses his humanity. He saw her humanity. The Holy Father says, when one part of society exploits all that the world has to offer, acting as if the poor did not exist, then there will eventually be consequences. Sooner or later, ignoring the existence of and rights of others will erupt in some form of violence. We saw this happening in the 1960s, 70s, and more intensely in the 1980s and 90s, which cost us a whole lot of human lives in that senseless, meaningless war that our leaders led our country into. It is true that we are a country with a unique history, unique traditions and culture. But this is also enriched through the mixture with other cultures, other peoples who walked into this country in its history. So therefore, to create a monolithic structure, since 1956, that monolithism started spoiling our society, showing that we have to be only people of one language or one religion. This cannot be tolerated. This will never bring human beings together. It will only create walls between human beings. What we need is a social covenant. It must be a cultural covenant which accepts different worldviews, different lifestyles as part of a coexistence in our human life. Peace in a society cannot be understood as